I'd like to call the meeting to order for Deschutes County Board of Commissioners. It is Monday, June 24th, 2024. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Citizen input. Stephen, are there any raised hands? No raised hands today. Okay. All right. So let's then go to our agenda items, and we need to now convene as the governing body of the Sun River Service District. And I believe, where is Jim at? Well, we have Robert.
I can generally kick this off too. It was a memo from Jim Pfister back to us, but in partnership with everybody, all the players here. I attended the May 17th Sun River Owners Association board meeting. Jim was there with me, as well as, some of the other board and staff. And I explained that I support this agreement as presented, referring to 5 seats, 5 appointed positions, ex officio seats for the Owners Association. And yeah, so this document as presented. So remember, as we discussed this in the previous, we're like, well, the question was everybody on the same page or not? And there's opinions on this, but I'm showing support for this version of this document as presented.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess none of the other board members are here with us today. So, we're the governing body in partnership with the managing of the Public Safety District. Sun River Owners Association, is the entity that I'm sure spread the word and created the district originally, with showing support for the Sun River owners themselves. But as I say, I do support the fact that this is truly an independent public safety district, that we're, part of the management level board.
And according to the memo from Jim, they're reducing the positions to the initial, returning it to 5 and not 7.
So 5 official seats and then 2 ex officio seats.
Okay.
Do we want to hear from Mindy? And
if you want to, as I say,
anything else that you think it's important for us to recognize at this time?
And can I also ask, is James here to speak for SROA on this issue, or are you here for something else?
Here you go.
I might have a question or two.
Hi there, Mindy Holiday, District Administrator. And I just wanted to let you know, at the board meeting, the SSD regular board meeting last Thursday, the board approved a resolution to approve these changes for the SSD joint contract with Deschutes County. So the board did prove to support these changes to move from 7 board members down to 5, and to have all 5 board members, as it's outlined in your packet, be district property owners, registered district electors, or business owner representatives within the district bounds, and not have an additional 2 specific just from the SROA board that have automatic 2 seats on the board.
And Mindy, can you remind me, so these 5 seats, is there a prohibition on those seats being SROA board members?
No, anybody can run for the district board that meets any of those areas as a property owner, an elector, or a business owner within the district bounds. It's just historically 2 of the seats have just been an automatic SROA board member, joint SSD board member. And I think this kind of all started a little bit, well, actually quite a few years ago, when we did a first change to the management agreement. It moved SROA just as instead of having to vote to approve to sign the agreement, they just signed that they've received the agreement. And then other pieces have kind of you know, we've evolved over the last few years. And so I think you know, SROA, of course, they were a huge support to the district getting going. But in the last year, we've moved all the financial and human resources needs internally, which they used to help support us for many years. And so I just think there's just starting, you know, the growth of the district to become our own entity.
Mhm.
Great. Are there any other questions?
I mean,
Any other questions?
I would love to ask James if, you know, for any perspective from the SROA board about the changes that have been made here now. I know in earlier versions, there were some concerns expressed and want to get a sense of whether those have been resolved or not.
James Lewis, I'm the general manager for the Sun River Owners Association. We expressed previous comments to you in writing. There were 7 or 8 points. We expressed those then orally a few months ago at a meeting
April
right here.
22nd.
Yes, and then expressed those to Commissioner DeBone at our May Board of Directors meeting. So all of those points, I won't recount them. Our board still feels strongly that all those points are relevant. So just again, re-emphasizing those. And they had that discussion with Commissioner DeBone. And again, the Board of Directors for the association would like to retain their positions on the SSD board. They also, though, I think one of the earlier versions was to have, rather than 2 automatic positions, was to go to 1 voting member. So they were even agreeable to that. So at this point, though, they just felt that it was important to have a continual voting voice as opposed to just the ex officio. So essentially, it's all the same points.
And so now the current agreement offers an ex officio position on the board that SROA can nominate and appoint. It's just this position cannot vote or be a part of executive sessions. And so being the public agency of the two, you know, as you know, there's certain rules and requirements for us as far as the public meetings and such. And so there was just getting to a point now where there's separate goals maybe among the entities and separate directions and areas of focus. The board felt that in order to, you know, to have representation on the board was incredibly important as an ex officio, but then being able to still go into executive session as just the district entity was also important.
And when I just asked, so there's no prohibition on someone being both an SROA board member and a SSD board member.
Correct. They would just have to go through the
Okay.
SSD nomination process, just like anybody else.
Right.
But the ex officio, the SROA board can nominate somebody off their board, a community member. James could be that person to then at least have a seat at the table, be able to vocalize opinion, be a part of the board seat, you know, up there. Be able to share their opinions and thoughts. However, they just would not be a voting member of the board
Mhm.
and then would not be a part of any executive sessions.
They would have to go through the same appointment process. as the other
Mhm.
and be appointed.
And I'm forgetting for the appointment process, it's not zoned, is it? There's people aren't representing different parts of Sun River. They're all at large seats.
So the precinct 16 is Sun River and it's -1, -2. And so -2 also includes the business park over by where Three Rivers is. But the district boundaries is just that zone 1. And so anybody that has a business, is an elector or owns would all come through this new nomination process beforehand. Once again, SROA is super helpful with their nomination process and the district board members would go through their nomination process. And the other piece to this management agreement is now having an internal piece where we are able to facilitate that on our own and then send up to you guys, you know, whoever we're wanting to nominate for the district board. And so anybody in Sun River, board members or not, can do that. But then in addition to that, they can have an ex officio, that's an appointment from the SROA board.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
So we don't have a proposed motion on here, but the document number is 2024-395. Is it appropriate to proceed at this time or put it?
Absolutely. You could just move
Yeah.
approval of that document.
Yep. So I will move approval of document 2024-395, the management agreement between the Sun River Service District and the Sun River. Well, I don't know. It's not with the Sun River Owners Association, is it?
No,
It's, yeah.
Deschutes County and.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
So just acknowledging, this is a business like clean scenario, I guess, is what we're setting up here. Any elector can be there. So maybe which hat you want. And then, the district is setting up professional services to the residents and visitors of the area. I mean, so there's no challenge to any of the goals and objectives of either organization. At this point, maybe we're setting aside some of the history, not to forget it, but just to get a real clear business-like relationship between the entities.
Yeah, if I could say one other thing, I just think, it is important. And I can't speak entirely on behalf of the board, but I'm confident that there will be an ex officio that will be appointed to the SSD board for participation. And part of the interest, I think, from the SROA board as in representing Sun River today will be any desire and any effect on service to Sun River proper as it is today, if there's a desire to expand the boundary of the district. So that will be kind of the key that I'm looking forward for the association.
There'd be a call for action if that discussion started to happen.
Well,
Yeah, community discussion.
been there, done that.
Yep.
I guess one last question. So, what would be the proposal to take the 7 existing seats and reshuffle that to 5 and 2 right now?
So the timing actually works out well because 2 of the seats, the SROA, joint SROA SSD board members, their terms expire August 31st. And so then there's going to be some shuffling. We're going to work with legal in their office, just so that we don't have a whole group of them expiring at the same time between the positions. But those 2 board members just naturally expire at the end of August. And so we were thinking of, to have it just happens to work out that way to have an easy transition.
And if one of them wanted to run to be a service district board member, they have time to do that.
Correct. So then after this, the next term of another board member doesn't expire till next summer. So between now and then, the district's going to be putting together the full nomination process and the procedures regarding that. And then it's open to anybody that would like to run for that open position.
All right. No more questions then. Commissioner DeBonne
Calling for the vote. Yes. Yeah.
and Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
Okay, and the chair votes yes. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, so now it is time to convene as the governing body of the county extension and 4-H service district.
Good afternoon.
Dan,
Yeah, good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. My name is Dan Emerson. I'm the Budget and Financial Planning Manager here at Deschutes County. Today, we will be adopting and going through a series of resolutions that adopts all of the service districts as well as the Deschutes County budget. And so this is a process that starts all the way back in December when we go over mid-year assumptions. The proposed budget meetings were May 20th through May 23rd, including the full budget committee. We then approved the budget and now we're moving on to the adopted budget. This resolution 2024-017 is adopting specifically the fiscal year 2024-2025 Deschutes County Extension 4-H service budget. There have been no changes to this budget since the proposed budget during that proposed budget week. And so at this point in time, this resolution would establish the budget and levy ad valorem tax.
There's no questions. I'll move approval of resolution 2024-017, adopting the fiscal year 2024 to 25 Deschutes County Extension and 4-H Service District budget in the sum of $1,103,560, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of 0.0224 dollars per $1,000 of assessed value and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
If we, okay, sorry, if we could open the public hearing first.
Oh,
and
sorry
close it.
about
I
that.
apologize.
Oh, I did say public hearing about it.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll get in the groove here.
Okay, so opening the public hearing, Dan, you just made some statements, which do we need to make those again?
No, you
Okay,
can just
all right.
open the public
So
hearing.
the public hearing is open. Are there any public comments? Stephen, I don't see any in the room. Are there any raised hands on Zoom? No public comments. So then let's close the public hearing and proceed with discussion and our motion.
So the motion was made. Can I acknowledge that? So
That's
I'll
right.
second it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All right. I would like to say, I'm really happy that we have such a great 4-H facility here in Deschutes County. And I'm really thankful that their funding seems to be carrying them on an annual basis. So calling for the vote, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
So just acknowledging that 2.24 cents, 2.25 cents adds up to $1,103,000. So like we're getting a $500,000 per penny countywide now. Is that what we're seeing?
I'd have to review their budget, the total sum of it.
Well, and just for all budgets though, I'm just saying, anything that's countywide, a penny, 1 penny is close to $500,000 or some number.
Yeah, I thought Penny was somewhere around 300,000 last time, when we went out last time to do the levy. So it's definitely getting larger. I'd have to look at
Or maybe that's reserves and some other stuff rolling up, but yeah.
they do have reserves and beginning working capital as well,
Mhm. So 300,000 or so.
around that area. Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, so I now believe we need to convene as the governing body of the Deschutes County 911 Service District. Dan,
Yep. So again, here, the budget committee met May 20th to 23rd and fulfilled its obligations by approving the fiscal year 2024-25 proposed budget as amended for Deschutes County 911. And at this time, there's been no changes to that public hearing and that proposed budget. And so this resolution would again approve the budget and levy the ad valorem taxes.
all right, and I believe then we need to open our public hearing. Is there anyone in the room? I don't see anyone in the room. Okay. Stephen, is there anyone on Zoom? No phone calls, nothing. Okay, all right, therefore we will close the public hearing. And any discussion from the commissioners?
Well, yeah, it's amazing that this 6-month process, annual budget process, we are concluding, and we're going to go through a bunch of these, but concluding the process today and not having people step in at the last moment is a good sign. Hopefully they're comfortable with the process that we've provided. So with that, I'll make a motion. I'll move approval of resolution number 2024-018, adopting the fiscal year 24-25 Deschutes County 911 Service District budget in the sum of $28,408,974, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the rate of 0.3618 per $1,000 of assessed value and appropriating amount set forth in the resolution.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, therefore calling for the vote, Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So now I'd like to convene as the governing body of the Black Butte Ranch Service District. Dan,
All right, so this is for your adoption and consideration of resolution number 2024-019, adopting the Black Butte Ranch Service District fiscal year 2024-25 budget and levying ad valorem taxes. There have been no changes since the full budget committee met May 20th to 23rd for the proposed budget. There's no changes from the approved budget at this point in time.
Right, let me open up the public hearing then. Is there anyone in the room that cares to comment? Stephen, are there any Zoom raised hands and or phone calls that we can see? Zero. Okay, all right, so then let's close the public hearing. Are there comments by the commissioners? Any comments?
No comments. I can make a motion.
Sure.
Move approval of resolution number 2024-019, adopting the fiscal year 2024 to 25 Black Butte Service District budget in the sum of $2,647,431, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $1.4.99 per thousand of assessed value for operations and 65 cents per 1,000 of assessed value for local option tax, and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
I will second it.
Okay, is there any further discussion? The commissioners? No, so Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Now I'm going to convene as the governing body of the countywide law enforcement district.
All right, so here today for public hearing and consideration of resolution number 2024-020, adopting the countywide law enforcement district budget, District Number 1. This is Fund 701 here at the county fiscal year 2024-25 budget. There have been no changes from the proposed budget and from the approved budget, excuse me, which was passed on May 23rd, 2024 by the Budget Committee.
Okay, I'm now opening up the public hearing. I don't see anyone new in the audience that's going to be testifying. Stephen, is there anyone online? No one, and there are no phone calls, correct? All right, so then let's close the public hearing. Do we have a commissioner's comment?
Oh, just acknowledging that these two districts, this one and the District 2, voted in by the people in 2006, have been a stable source of revenue for public safety, the jail operations. This is countywide, and our sheriff's office. So really appreciate the partnership with the citizens on this for the public safety investment. And with that, I'll make a motion, move approval of resolution 2024-020, adopting the fiscal year 24-25 countywide law enforcement district budget in the sum of $51,483,921, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the rate of $1.25 per $1,000 of assessed value and appropriating amount set forth in the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Therefore, calling for the vote, Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Now, we are going to convene as the governing body of the rural law enforcement district. Dan.
All right, so this is the public hearing and consideration of resolution number 2024-021, adopting the rural law enforcement district, District Number 2, Fund 702 for fiscal year 24-2025. And this resolution establishes the budget and levies the ad valorem taxes within the rural district. There have been no changes since the approved budget was voted on and passed May 23rd of 2024.
Okay, let's open up the public hearing. See if there's anyone in the room that cares to testify on the rural law enforcement district budget. I don't see anyone in the room. Stephen, is there anyone online? And there are no phone calls. So then let's close the public hearing. Are there any commissioner comments at this moment?
I would just say, we learned at the Budget Committee hearings this year that there's still work to do to get our rural law enforcement district to a sustainable funding level to provide the services that the people of rural Deschutes County demand. And I'm looking forward to us doing some of that work in the next couple of years. And looking at all kinds of options and not just kind of homing in on one or two simple options. But that's work to be done in future budget cycles, not this one. So with that, I'll move approval of resolution number 2024-021, adopting the fiscal year 2024 to 25 rural law enforcement district budget in the sum of $17,891,381, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $1.55 per thousand of assessed value, and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
And I will second it.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang calling for the vote,
Yes.
and Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We are now to item number 7. We need to convene as the governing body of the Sun River Service District.
So this is the public hearing and consideration of resolution number 24022, adopting the Sun River Service District fiscal year 2024-25 budget and levying the ad valorem taxes. There have been no changes since this proposed budget was approved on May 23rd of 2024 with the Budget Committee.
Okay, let's now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the room that cares to testify on the Sun River Service District budget? Seeing none in the room, is there anyone on Zoom or called in? No, Stephen. Okay, so therefore let's close the public hearing. Is there discussion from the commissioners?
Just acknowledging that this is the police and fire service of the Sun River area. We just had the discussion about the Sun River Service District, and Sun River Owners Association is kind of their de facto city council, not being a city, but a lot of great coordination and cooperation in the Sun River area. With that, I'll make a motion. I'll move approval of resolution 2024-022, adopting the fiscal year 24-25 Sun River Service District budget in the sum of $21,362,003, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the rate of $3.45 per $1,000 of assessed value for operations and 47 cents per $1,000 of assessed value for local option tax, and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, calling for the vote. Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Now we are convening as the governing body of Deschutes County Road Agency.
And so this is the public hearing consideration of resolution number 2024-023, adopting the Deschutes County Road Agency FY 24-25 budget. There have been no changes since the approved budget, which was approved on May 23rd. And this resolution does not have any taxes associated with it, so it's just adopting the budget.
Okay, I'll open up the public hearing at this time. I don't see anyone in the room that has a raised hand. Is there anyone on Zoom or online, on a phone? No? Okay, Stephen, thank you. We will then therefore close the public hearing. Are there any commissioners that care to comment?
Well, I'll just say I'm really glad that we got this road agency established for this year, and are able to collect these $672,162 from the federal government through the Secure Rural Schools program. And it reemphasizes to me the importance of the county engaging in discussions and advocacy in order to ensure that those Secure Rural Schools payments continue to come to the county through this agency. And but more to be said on about that in other settings, but just a note of the need for advocacy on our end. And with that, I'll move approval of resolution number 2024-023, adopting the fiscal year 24-25 Deschutes County Road Agency budget in the sum of $672,162 and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Yes, we will see. This is to be seen. This one. All right. Calling for the vote, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, now we are going to reconvene as the governing body of Deschutes County, and we have item number 9. Thank you, Dan.
So this is the public hearing in consideration of resolution number 2024-016, adopting the Deschutes County fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. There have been changes since the proposed budget was approved on May 23rd. The board has authority to make changes to the approved budget by up to 10% of expenditures in each fund. None of these adjustments were up to 10%. They were all less than 10%. And real quick, I'll do a little overview of some of the larger changes that occurred between the approved and now what we're asking for the adopted budget. The general fund, there was an increase in $447,000 in expenditures. $320,000 of that was for the home fund. $127,000 of that was for health services, crime prevention funds. That was not, should have been in the proposed budget, but was not. So we were equaling out those transfers. Correspondingly, this reduced the transfer out to our capital reserve by $447,000 and decreased the reserve amount there. There were a couple smaller adjustments of lines that were missed. And then there was a $50,000 adjustment to natural resources to account for the correct transfer for video lottery. And lastly, health services, which they presented in their budget, recognized $532,075 in additional revenue, primarily from state and local grants. And the increase in this funding was offset by expenditure increases in program expense and contingency. And so those are all the major changes that were made between the approved and the adopted budget. And today, with you guys passing this resolution, these would be confirmed within the budget. Are there any questions related to the changes or anything in this resolution?
Should we have those now, or should we have the public hearing at this moment? Do you have any?
I mean, you can open the public
Okay,
hearing if you'd like.
okay, we need to open the public hearing then. Is there anyone in the room that's going to comment? Stephen, is there anyone online? Okay, and there are no phone calls. All right, okay, so closing the public hearing. Yes, are there additional questions?
No, this would just be the conclusion of all the budgets in the service districts, and it's kind of the recognition of a long process that we're all really proud to be a part of. So,
Yeah, that was kind of my comments at the beginning, but this is the end now of the whole process. So yeah, thank you very much for you and the team to put this together, the public members of the budget committee, the department heads, working together through this whole process. I know some jurisdictions do a budget every other year, and the state does it every other year. This has worked well for us to really just keep an eye on, okay, what are the income, what are the expenses, what are the needs in the community? So this is the culmination of that process. So I'll make a motion. I'll move approval of resolution 2024-016, adopting the fiscal year 24-25 Deschutes County budget in the sum of $628,195,504, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $1.2783 per $1,000 of assessed value, and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion?
These are definitely inflationary times also. So they kind of put a different hat on, thinking, oh, this is a growing budget. A lot of public money dropped on us from state and federal post-COVID even. So we're seeing, a bigger budget right now. There may be Well, and one of the things I think of is if a public budget goes flat, it feels like it's shrinking because that's hard times. Our expenses are going up. So yeah, this is going to be, maybe the beginning of some times where the budget process is going to, maybe be more challenging with the income expense, the resources that we have and the expenses that we incur.
All right, so any other comments? A motion has been made. Let's call for the vote. Commissioner Devon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So now we are to item number 10.
Okay, so this is the public hearing and consideration of resolution number 2024-024, adopting a supplemental budget and adjusting appropriations within the 2023-2024 Deschutes County budget. So as we come to the end of the fiscal year, some budgets do not have the appropriation to buy materials or services or personnel or whatnot, and legally we need to increase their appropriation, usually done by pulling money from contingency, increasing the appropriation so that people can make those expenditures. And so every year we do kind of a cleanup at the end of the year to make sure all these funds have the appropriations. And in your staff agenda are the specific adjustments. There are a lot of kind of minor adjustments. I would say the largest adjustment and probably the major adjustment here is to the health benefits fund. Due to unanticipated claims, it is necessary to recognize beginning working capital of $365,000. So we're going to recognize some additional revenue that came in this year, but we need to reduce contingency by 2.735 million and increase materials and services by 3.1 million to potentially cover the increased costs of those anticipated claims. I do not think that you would need to use all of this contingency, but it is a legal requirement to make sure we have enough appropriations. So we have done a very conservative job of moving as much contingency as possible over there. And so are there any questions with respect to the health benefits fund or any of the other adjustments that are being made on this resolution 2024? I am here to answer those.
Well, my question is, how soon are we going to meet regarding the health benefit fund so that we address the costs that have definitely spiraled out of control, the 29%, and the fact that now our fund is down, what, to 2.4 million?
Yeah, I think you'll hear in the financial reports, it's kind of a conservative projection at this point, but 2.4 million as the ending working capital. It was about 5 million that the health benefits fund had budgeted to be the beginning working capital. So this is a much more than anticipated, certainly. I did see the last claims data come in a couple of days ago, and it was substantially less than we had estimated. So I am hopeful that the actual ending balance will be somewhere between the 3 to high 3 millions. But regardless, that's still $1.5 million to $1 million reduction, and there would still need to be some kind of increase in premiums or decrease in benefits cost.
Or maybe all of the above.
Or all of the above, correct?
Someone has suggested that we definitely are going to have to look at our benefits.
Mhm.
And, I honestly believe that the fact that we received a paragraph from our auditors a year ago about the health benefit fund, it will be interesting because can't those bills go through September? Isn't that what you said?
The bills do go through September. Parts of those bills are accrued back into fiscal year 24. And so probably because of that reason and because of some of the variability, I would probably recommend waiting at least till July, kind of to see where the dust might settle on the ending working capital, because there's a substantial difference between a $2.4 million ending working capital and a 3.5. But yeah, your levers there on the cost side. And then, of course, the departmental charges for health insurance, as well as the employee charges for health insurance as well. And I definitely think that given where we're looking at the final balance to be and the forecast that I was able to share with the commissioners, I think that there will be some kind of needed increase in those premium costs, in those premium rates going forward. But I do think
You're talking about premium rates for employees. Is that what you're talking about?
potentially for employees or for departments. I mean, the employee portion of the coverage is much less than the department portion of the court coverage. I mean, I think departments pay $1,985 a month Whereas on average, our employees in fiscal year 24 pay about $101. There's kind of two different rates there. So the vast majority of the premium revenue that comes in is on the departmental side at this point, but an adjustment to the employee. I think I found if you were to increase, and this is just a number, but if you were to increase the employee portion by something like $50, which is a lot, that would be about 670,000 more in generated revenue for the health benefits cost. And so that's kind of why I recommend maybe waiting another month to see where the dust settles, to make sure that the forecast that finance and HR can provide is accurate to where we think claims costs will be in 25. But no matter what, there'll have to be some movement of potentially all three of those levers.
We were what, at one point in time at 18 million, and our target was really 8 million. And I believe we have really gone down excessively below that target. So I think that a year ago, it should have been raised then.
Mhm.
And you knew with COVID and all the facts that people weren't doing healthcare, it was all postponed or considered an emergency. And you only knew that it was going to jump up excessively. So, $60 more. Yes, I figured what 90 was like $1 million. That was my calculation last year. And then when I found out that we raised it, what was it, like $21, $25? When you talk to people that work in private industry, this is really, it's a sore subject because they are paying, let's say $600, $800 a month for their health insurance for their family. And we've definitely, we've overshot our mark
Yeah.
or undershot it.
Well, we spent down the reserve, and whether we end at 2.4 or 3.8 million, it's, the contingency level is supposed to be around 6 to 8 million right now. And so if the goal is to ensure that we're at that contingency or moving very quickly within the next couple of years to hit that contingency, then certainly with the way claims have been over the last few years, we would need to make some increases. Again, it's up to the board where those increases and administration where those increases occur. And there's kind of those three different levers, but something will need to be done.
Definitely. And I'd say sooner rather than later. And I know, of course, that they're saying we can't raise it until January 1st for employees.
For the employees from the EBAC side, the departmental side could be raised with a resolution. So at any point in time. Yeah.
We also need to keep in mind that one of the ways that we compete for employees with the private sector, where people get paid a lot more, is by offering good benefits. And so there's a balance that we need to strike between, raising premium copays on our employees, and also doing what we do need to do to be competitive enough to actually attract, recruit, retain good employees.
Well, yeah, so this is the big picture here. This is the adopting a supplemental budget for this year. But then the reality is that, we've got a health benefits fund that's starting to really nosedive. I think of this is very public process. This is our public funds, public employees, public budgeting documents, because I got to imagine that, the medical field and other private health funds, everybody's probably in this spot because we're just seeing it. This is a public notification that the cost of healthcare is just escalating in a shocking fashion right now. I do support, partnering with our EBAC. These are our Employees Benefit Advisory Committee. This is the moment, folks, where we're going to work together. Let's take a look at this. Let's be partners in this. We've got about 1,200 employees, but then more than double that or more than and covered lives under this health system. Let's do a monthly review here in the next few months. Let's get serious about making choice if we have to. Numbers are being mentioned here today. People will start to jockey for a position pretty quick, but we've got to work together on this. It was mentioned that this fund was excessive at one point, but that was holding rates steady, and it's just the cost of doing business wasn't escalating. But now it just turned on us. There was a couple of years it would have been awkward to raise the internal charges or the fees to employees because the fund was so big. But man, is that turned upside down quickly on us. So let's work together.
Well, it was actually visible because inflation started over a year ago. And the fact that people were not doing healthcare for the 2 years, let's say, of COVID, and you knew that it was things were gonna change. And what is, we increased 11% and the actual increase was almost 30. So we missed it by 19%.
Mhm.
Pretty significant. And I'm not blaming you, Dan. Thank you for all the work that you do, but honestly, I would have thought EBAC would have raised it more a year ago. And their raise was really, really immaterial. And, you know, it's a cost out there.
Mhm.
And we provide, what is the word? A Cadillac program, health insurance plan that, is going to have to be evaluated.
Very strong program.
Yeah, and in the last couple of years, there have been people who have developed certain conditions that are very long term and very expensive, and there are prescription drug costs that have increased dramatically for the county as well. So I mean, we would want to I think we would want to look very carefully at certain kinds of conditions, certain kinds of medications, try to understand what we can do in terms of cost containment on those things, and prevention as well. It's all part of the picture.
And I would just mention that, I think going back 4 years, the average claims and certainly what our actuaries were telling us was 6%, just increase at 6% per year. And then we had a year of 29%. And then I think last year was kind of a strange year where we were down at 3%. And then again, as Commissioner Adair said, we've jumped back up to close to a 30% increase again in projected claims costs here by the end of the year. So it's very much been a wave that we're trying to get a hold of. And, I think in our forecast for FY25, we've put it at 12%, but I'm sure we'll be meeting with our consultants again to see if we really need to be looking at a higher claims increase in FY25 too, based on our claims analysis and kind of what we have going on here at the county.
Well, and I think wasn't a year ago it was going to be estimated about $8 million reserve or
Yes, the
rollover.
budget for
Yeah.
fiscal year ending 22 was 8,375,000.
That's
So yes, and that's really what our target was, I believe.
Yeah.
When we were up at 18.
But I mean, a year ago we were sitting right here for the
No, this
budget
was
process.
22. That's the 22 number. And then the 23 year-end budget number was 8,800,000. So that was jumping up 500,000. And now what have we done? So.
Yeah. Okay. So can we earmark this for future discussion and action?
Oh, that will be. Yep.
Okay. With that, I'll move approval of the resolution.
Can we, sorry,
have to
we
open
still
the
need to.
public-
Oh, we didn't open the
Yeah.
public.
Public hearing.
Apologize.
I've not done the public hearing yet because this was, what is the word?
Supplemental.
A disappointing year-end fiscal drop down of our health benefit fund. So opening up the public hearing. Is there anyone in the room that cares to testify? Is there anyone on Zoom? No one's on Zoom. And no one's calling in. Thank you, Stephen. Therefore, we'll close the public hearing. Are there any other comments?
Okay, then with that, I'll move approval of resolution number 2024-024, increasing and adjusting appropriations within the 2023-24 Deschutes County budget.
And I will second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing no, because all the other numbers seem to be rather insignificant by comparison, right?
Mhm.
Okay, Commissioner Chang calling for the vote
Yes.
and Commissioner DeBonne
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Thank you, commissioners. We will definitely earmark that. It's one of our priorities to continue looking at evaluating and make sure we come up with some solutions. So
Yeah. And Dan, I'd just like to thank you for completing this final budget cycle with us.
thank you, Commissioner Chang. Thank you.
Good luck on your future endeavors.
Yes, because I was going to say, good luck.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, commissioners.
All right, we come to item number 11.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. Josh Burgess was going to join us for this item. I don't see him today. but if he's online, Stephen will admit him and he could join me. This is a proposed MOU between Deschutes County and Healthy Democracy in support of a Central Oregon Civic Action Project for a citizen assembly on youth homelessness. Citizen assemblies have been used in different parts of the country and the world to engage a group of citizens in looking at public policy issues, and it results in discussions and recommendations. The proposal from Healthy Democracy is that they send out 12,000 letters to random properties in Deschutes County, and through that process, they would select 30 people to participate in the citizen assembly. They would then educate the citizen assembly on the topic matter.
I think he might be coming in right now.
Okay.
Around the corner here. Yeah, that may be him.
We are, I'm seeing that we're over 20 minutes ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
I could pause until he comes, or if the board wants to go to another item.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll just wait one moment because
All right.
we just have treasurer and finance report after this.
Are you sure that was him?
We'll find out in about 10 seconds.
I saw was pants.
Yeah, me too, but
Under the shade here. I do kind of think that if it's not him, then maybe it would be good for us to go to something else to give him time to be here.
So Bill, do you want to step
It's
up
his item.
in a minute?
I just know he'll be excited to participate.
Yes. Yeah, and he can give more complete background about citizen assemblies.
There he is. That's it.
Here we go. Here's your chance.
Josh, go ahead and join us at the
Ready.
table, please.
Okay. Well,
We're running ahead of schedule.
that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for having me. To all the
Josh, if you could
Please
introduce
introduce yourself.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
what you could do is talk a little bit about what the citizen assembly is. And then once you're complete, I could talk a little bit about the MOU.
That sounds great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Burgess. Pronouns are he, him. I am the director of the Central Oregon Civic Action Project, which is a partnership of several nonprofits. Democracy Next, which is a global expert in all things deliberative democracy, who has provided us with much of our blueprint for how to bring more deliberative democracy to Central Oregon. Other partner is Healthy Democracy, which is an Oregon-based nonprofit that focuses on jury-based and civic lottery-based deliberative democracy efforts, including citizens' assemblies and civic assemblies. And then our third partner is the OSU Cascades Laboratory for the American Conversation, bringing much needed research on civic dialogue to our partnership. A citizens assembly is, in essence, a small group of local residents, in this case from Deschutes County, that represents broadly the demographics of the entire county. In this case, we're looking at bringing 30 people together over the course of 4.5 days to learn more about the challenge of youth homelessness in our region, to understand better what solutions are being implemented, what's been tried, what's worked and what hasn't. They'll hear from subject matter experts. They'll hear from people with personal and lived experience. There will be an external content development group that will bring forth information to this group. Over the course of 2 full days, they'll learn as much as many experts do in a much longer period of time. Over the next 2 days, they will then deliberate in small groups and large groups over what they believe as everyday citizens of this community, they believe should be the appropriate prioritization of resources and efforts in order to help align in a way that is not just a part of what normal stakeholders and government agencies have been doing, which is a tremendous amount we all recognize to help put an end to youth homelessness, But in addition, you'll be hearing then from people who represent the broad demographics of the entire community. After those 2 days of deliberation, they'll then put together, based on supermajority consensus, what they believe should be the priorities. That will probably be a fairly short list that will come back to not just the county, but the jurisdictions within the county, including other government and non-governmental agencies and organizations that deal with this particular issue. And once we have those recommendations, with the cooperation of the COIC and other related agencies, I think most notably the Youth Action Board, that is part of the Youth Housing Development Program. I believe that's the correct acronym, will be brought together for those recommendations to be presented. And with your gracious acceptance of this MOU, those recommendations that do apply to the county would then be brought forth, and you would debate on those and luckily discuss with the community whether or not you'll implement those recommendations. We've signed a similar MOU with the city of Bend, and we're in talks with other jurisdictions here in the local area as well. I think maybe I'll pause there and see if there are any questions.
Don't have any questions.
Josh, can you just explain again the Youth Housing Development Program and the Youth Action Board?
Yes.
Those are existing.
They are existing. This was
Organizations.
a federal HUD grant that was awarded to the region through the COIC last fall. Only a very small number of them were awarded throughout the country. I think 3 west of the Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. This was roughly $1 million to be utilized over the course of 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, specifically geared toward youth houselessness. And the Youth Action Board is a group of, I think right now it's 7 to 8 young people who are or have experienced houselessness, who bring their expertise to bear on deliberating on how to use those monetary resources that have come from HUD. And they're also instrumental in advising bodies like the CHRO and the Regional Housing Council and Continuum of Care on how to attack this problem. We are collaborating with them in a way that we believe will help strengthen the youth voice in helping to understand and bring this to light for the community as well.
So this is kind of a trial run. You know, it's a great idea. Hey, let's just get a group of people in a room and figure some things out. You know, this is our democracy. This is our representative republic. This is the big picture here. You and I have had some good discussions about this. I don't mind Deschutes County's logo being utilized on this. It'll be a trial run for a topic, right? Setting up the scenario is going to be interesting. You know, I mean, some people just want to be left alone, and you're not going to be able to get them at the table. So then the people that are enthusiastic to be at the table are going to be like, I know the answer. Here we go. Let's all follow me. And I worry that we're not going to hear from some people still, but let's try it. You know, as I say, reviewing the MOU, thank you to, legal and administration for saying, yep, we're going to be partners and we're going to work together on this, but we're not writing a check, and, let's be open to what's possible. So we'll see where it goes. Kind of gets my heart racing thinking that, what are we really going to get out of here? Because I worry about the scenario. Pardon me, now I'm on a roll. We've determined that there's government money to fix a problem. How are we going to spend the money? I don't know that that's the scenario. You know, housing or homeless is a housing problem. We need to build more houses. Okay, so then it's a land use issue. Well, no. Environmentalism says we have to put people in the city, so we can't grow a city unless we stack them up high. Where's enough money for that? So my point is, this could get interesting.
Thank you very much. And this is truly a complex problem, and there is no one solution. There's no panacea. And I think what this helps do is bring people to the table to help you and other elected officials and our administrators understand not just what stakeholders believe priorities should be, because they've been heads down in these projects for so long. But in many cases, the broader part of the community isn't aware of what's being done and what doesn't. So it actually is will help in public engagement to some degree. But there's also a heck of a lot of wisdom in our community that's underutilized just by nature. And what we believe will happen, and what thousands, actually hundreds of cases of this around the world have shown, is that it will help to build awareness around the challenge and the solutions throughout the community. It'll help to actually rebuild some faith in institutions, because you all have had the willingness to kind of lean a little bit forward and do something that's beyond the normal and innovative. And that will help rebuild some faith in the community, in your willingness to listen. And I think most importantly, in this time of divisiveness and division along so many community lines, we'll see people come together in ways that they typically don't. Normally, these types of events really result in some mending of the social fabric. You're bringing people from many different backgrounds together into one room for long enough that they remember what it's like to talk to one another and solve problems in a way that shows some empathy and doesn't just sling arrows across the social media comment section. So we're excited to do this not just once, but we'll see. Maybe
do
more
it virtually or in person.
It'll all be in person.
So my issue with this, your panelist form, you say that it's going to be nonprofit, and yet on the panelist form, which party are you registered with? I feel like if this is honestly a nonprofit, nonpartisan venue, then why would that question even be there? I would think you would be more concerned with maybe something a little bit like their life experience. What's your life experience? But no, we have to know what our schooling, our age, if we own our home. But having to identify your party on this, like really, like it feels that it's what is your agenda, and who's making that decision on determining the 30 people that actually get on here?
Yeah, I appreciate that very much, ma'am.
Well, it's right there. It's on the front page, and I'm going like, wow, nonpartisan, but what they want to know your party.
And the purpose there is, so the way the selection of the individuals goes, and this will get to answering your question in whole, I hope, is we're sending out 12,500 invitation letters that are going out to random addresses throughout the community.
Who's determining the randomness of those invitations?
We worked with your staff, ma'am, to get GIS data on addresses, and chose then random addresses out of the entirety of the list. The only selection criteria there is based on the population density. So the proportional amount are going to Sisters versus Bend, and Lapine versus Redmond. So it's just population proportionality and then random addresses. And anyone within those homes who receives the invitation who's age 16 or over and who's not a current government employee can apply. Once those come back, we chose those specific criteria, demographic criteria, to allow us to get as representative a group of the community as possible in the room. And we do that because this was a truly random mailing of 12,500, it could go to all people who are, let's say, registered Republicans or registered independents. That's the nature of randomness. So what we want to make sure is that when we do come back, that we take those demographic identifiers, still with no other identification, and we put those into a computer calculator, if you will, which takes all of those 7 different identifiers and builds out a list of all of the possible permutations there would be for a group that is representative of the broader demographics. And there are typically hundreds, if not thousands, of possible permutations. So there's your stratification via demographics. Then we're going to take those hundreds or thousands of permutations, and we're going to pull out lottery balls out of a ball, and the numbers will choose truly by random which one of those possible permutations comes out. So there will be no human in the loop, if you will, of making a deciding factor on who's involved. And there's no political alignment of any of the organizations who are involved either. I mean, our real hope here is that is that there's a true balance, because our community is fairly balanced. There are obviously, as you go across the boundaries of cities and the county, there are big differences there, but we want to make sure that it is represented. And that's why we make then the additional rule that any recommendations are super majority based on the consensus, so that we don't just have decisions and recommendations that come back to you that are 50-50. Some people in the room will have to move a bit on their opinions and their decisions, or we won't bring that recommendation to you because it'll be kind of just the same things you've always seen. I hope that helps.
Oh, it definitely helps.
Thanks.
Or the recommendations will just have to be the things that a broad range of people can agree on, and you'll have to leave some things on the outside,
Absolutely.
on the outside edges.
Yeah. And frankly, typically you're not going to get a bunch of recommendations that have never been heard of or never tried. And there will be a deep acknowledgement of the efforts that are ongoing across the board to help solve problems like this.
So, yeah, I'm ready to proceed. Anything else, Eric?
Yes, I was just going to add that there has been discussions. The goal of the group is for future citizen assemblies and possibly having government to help fund that. I have made it clear, at least from a staff perspective, that we would be unlikely to put that in the budget. We do have a item for public information. We actually reduced it this upcoming fiscal year and reallocated some of those funds for translation services. But just from a staff perspective, I think it's an interesting exercise, but we would unlikely put it in the budget from the staff side of things. Obviously, that could be added by the board or the budget committee later. The second thing I would add is one limitation I see in this process is, as the board knows, in budgeting, you have more requests than resources, and part of any budget process is prioritizing and deciding what to spend money on and what not to. And a possible limitation of this process is you have a group looking at one issue, and most likely recommendations will cost money, but it's not comparing it to other demands for resources.
Yeah, very well understood. And I think, as you and I discussed, Eric, I appreciate this is a pilot project. It's worked very well from the local to the national level in other countries. But this is one of the first times that this has been done in our region, and there haven't been too many in the United States. So we're giving it a shot. We think that it will have similar positive results, but it's on us and on the community to make it demonstrate the value, so that in the future, as we look to do this sustainably and build this into a hub for civic engagement, that then you'll see the value in putting it back into the budget. And we also look. We're already, eyes are on us from across the country. We've had outreach from Klamath County, from Portland, from Virginia, from Connecticut, from elected officials and nonprofits already wanting to know how we're getting government buy-in, how we're getting the community bought into this. So if it's a new way to bring people together within their communities beyond our borders, we'd love to see Central Oregon become a beacon of how to make things work in a better way for the entire country.
I'll just say that I'm really excited to see the recommendations that come out of this process. It is so rare so rare for communities to engage their citizens civically in this way. Tap into the brainpower, the wisdom, the insights that exist within a community, to have those people, that group of people learn, do in-depth learning together and engage in intensive dialogue. And I very much believe that kind of a process could produce some really valuable insights and recommendations for us policymakers as we try to address this incredible challenge of youth homelessness in our community. And like I said, I'm very much looking forward to seeing these recommendations. Thank you for organizing this process.
Well, I'm interested in recommendations also, but man, I see the world so differently. You know, we're elected officials. Our job is to get out there, talk to people, hear from people, be available for input from anybody, any generation, any person in the area. I don't feel, and I answer the phone and communicate in emails, as many people as contacted me. So as I say, it'll be interesting to see if you can get that next person out, get people engaged at a different level. Are you going to be able to get some engagement by the people that just want to be left alone? And I'm serious about that. Come on, 100 people, let's all go. And some people are just going to be like, don't bother me. So it'll be so interesting to see what happens here. I do kind of not worry, but I mean, if recommendations come back and said, we've got a great idea, how about government spend more money down this path? Okay. And then it gets back to the same concept. Well, we've got priorities. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Money is not always the answer.
Well, that's my point. I mean,
Yeah, we have
it'll be
spent
interesting to see.
millions and billions of dollars on this problem, and it clearly is not working. And that's why I still find it hard to think that these are the 7 questions for the people, because if they actually really passionately care about it, really their names all should go on a lottery and you could pull them out randomly or whatever. But yeah, so it's definitely money is not the answer. And we keep seeing that the destruction of part of our state, our country. I just was hearing from people that saw all the druggies doing in Spokane and how sad it was. And yet, why is it? It seems the bigger cities have a bigger problem. So that was just my feedback from Spokane, because I'd only driven around Spokane. I hadn't seen it inside, but they said it was really, it's such a beautiful place, and yet it's being destroyed. So yeah, it's a crazy thing.
With that, I'll move approval of the county administrator's signature on document number 2024-459, a memorandum of understanding between Deschutes County and Healthy Democracy.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
So as I say, not a big commitment for the future. We don't know where this is going to go, but it's good to be able to even talk at this level as we're discussing it in a public meeting.
Yeah, I mean, as I see it, the main commitment that we're making is to take a serious look at the recommendations that come out of this process. I'm certainly ready to commit to doing that.
Well, thank you all for taking that step. It's invaluable and it's meaningful.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, you haven't?
It might not pass.
No. Honestly, the partisan, nonpartisan thing really throws me off. And do I care about the homeless youth? Yes, I do. But I have a feeling that we could have a better group of people come in and without some of your questions. So some of your answering questions. I mean, I'm afraid somebody's going to be eliminated, and maybe they actually have had children. Is there anyone here that says, have you had a homeless child? Can you give us your feedback? No, I don't see it. I see what's your gender, what's your schooling, but have you actually had lived experience? And to me, that is a much more valuable question to ask people in this survey.
If I can.
But it's not there, and that's
Commissioner
okay.
Adair,
We're done. I'm done talking about it,
Okay.
and it's okay. So the vote, Commissioner DeBonne,
I'll vote yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and I'll vote no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Also, one last thing I'd like to say is that there's been speculation about what kind of recommendations might come out of this process, and kind of the value of those. And I want to say that money isn't the only thing that we lack in our community to implement the right things.
Oh, so are you critiquing me now? You're talking to me?
No.
Okay, I'm just
Speaking
making
in
sure.
general.
I don't see
Yeah.
where we're going here.
Because you're always listening for me to be attacking you. So, money isn't the only thing that we need. What we need is a broad community support for actions that are going to make a difference. And we live in a hyper partisan divided community right now, especially on these issues of homelessness.
But money
And
isn't,
this gives us, I am not talking about,
it's a dollar.
I am not talking about money. I'm talking about the lack of community agreement and civility and listening that we have in our community, which listening might have given you an indication that I wasn't talking about money. So if we need broad community involvement and agreement to actually move forward with the things that we need to do, a process like this is an incredible opportunity for our community to help to build some of that shared understanding and agreement. That's all I was going to say.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to say that it would have been really sweet if they would have had people that have actually had that experience. And why is it the children in Deschutes are always at the high end of using drugs and things. So, you know, it's very complicated, but
Yeah.
And
This
how
is
did we actually get the $1 million grant from for J-Bar-J if they didn't have a great application? I would have hoped that they would have had a plan on what they need to do. But thanks, Josh, for coming. And
This Youth Action Board is a great opportunity to engage 7 to 8 youths with lived experience in this whole process.
And if I can, just one last comment, Commissioner Adair, I would love to sit down with you and talk in greater depth about some of the measures that we already are implementing to address those very real concerns that you have. So anytime, I'd love to meet with you.
sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we have our treasurer's report. Bill Kuhn, please.
Back to the money.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Bill Kuhn, Deschutes County Treasurer. Thanks for allowing me to present the May Treasurer's Report. Like I usually do, I'll lead off with a few kind of a high-level overview of recent economic activity. I think probably the most impactful news over the past several weeks was the release of the May CPI data. This data showed that inflation moderated slightly to 3.3%. Which was down from April's 3.4% reading. However, it's only 1 month of data, and it doesn't move the needle significantly in terms of achieving the Fed's terminal goal of a 2% inflation rate. As noted by various Fed commentaries, actually in the meeting minutes from our June 11th, June 12th meeting, there's still no evidence yet to change monetary policy now. Supporting a reduction in rates. And again, they commented on significant areas of inflation remain in energy and housing costs. And we've seen that trend over the last few months. Talk a lot about this higher for longer rate scenario. And that's really the only tool that the Fed has to fight inflation is to keep rates high. And so they're going to be very, I believe, slow to react and respond. The next FOMC meeting is scheduled the end of this July 30th and 31st. And really no expectation of a rate change for that meeting. But they will be reviewing kind of mid-year economic data. So it'll be a kind of an important milestone for the Fed. The market is still forecasting.
July?
Excuse me.
Did you say there's a meeting in July?
Yeah, the end of
One at
July.
Jackson Hole?
Excuse me.
Is it at Jackson Hole, that meeting?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, Of
Yeah.
course. Don't you
yeah.
think we should go, Bill?
They won't be. Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear the commentary that comes out of that meeting, but really the market's expectation right now is virtually no change in rates in the near term. The market is still forecasting 2 rate reductions in 2024. I think the latest thing that I read was that they're now forecasting potentially in November and then possibly a mid-year. And the timing on that one is going to be interesting with the election cycle. But they're forecasting a total of 50 basis points in rate reductions between now and the end of the year. And I believe, or actually commentary is that conservative approach to cutting rates will carry into 2025 as well. So While recent inflation readings have moderated slightly, economic growth has proven resilient. And I think the biggest issue that we've seen over the last several weeks is the U.S. economy jobs report. And I know a lot of these get adjusted after the fact, but the economy, according to the latest news for May, added in 272,000 jobs in May, which far exceeded the forecast. And job growth, frankly, is still way too strong for Fed policymakers. So that's one area that they're keeping very close watch on right now.
But the job numbers have all been adjusted down.
They do. They
Like
do.
some of them
And it's the
really-
initial
Yeah.
shock that they,
Well,
they look at the initial reading, not what gets adjusted.
right, the adjustments have been over the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah, there's
Like,
been some.
you wonder what they're even
significant adjustments to
counting.
Prior months' job growth. I would
Question.
completely agree with that.
Do you have a feel, is that relative to like total employment? Like the total employment numbers, have they been going up or down over
Unemployment
time?
has
I mean,
actually gone up.
the last decade,
I
that
think
kind of
that's a
thing.
better measure of kind of what's happening in the economy is the unemployment rate is moving up, but job growth is, there's been a couple of months of fairly strong job growth. Now, whether or not it's permanent job growth or more transitory,
But over the decades, do we have a lot more people working in the United States than we have, or a lot less, or kind of just like total numbers? I don't have a feel for.
yeah, and that's not a number that I
Yeah. Okay. Not a
track,
problem.
but I think,
It's-
overall, there's a lot of discussion around declining population growth and controls over inbound migration and all of that. So I think there's some fundamental issues that will play a major role into the future there, just in terms of what that workforce looks like.
Do you have
and what
some of that
kind an
information,
impact that
Commissioner?
has on economic activity.
I'm not saying anything.
The workforce, the potential workforce is much smaller.
Yeah.
Baby boomers are retiring out of the economy 10,000 per day.
And we're not replacing those with new additions to the workforce.
And that was
I think that's fundamental.
in our population pyramid, that was a pretty fat chunk. And, the baby boomers kids was the next biggest chunk, and they've already been in the labor force for 10 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Looking at kind of long-term demographic trends, I think that will prove to be telling.
And 1 out of 5 over 65 are working because they can't afford
Mhm.
the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
inflation and what everything is costing.
yeah. So if they're showing up, if people who've been forced to go back to work after they retired because they're financially strained, if they're showing up in those unemployment numbers, that's not good. That's actually bad news.
So anyway, more to come there, but I going to be interesting reading Fed commentary over the next several months. I think that's going to be telling. And again, we're in an election cycle too, so just kind of keep that in mind as well. I'll talk a little bit about housing data. So this nationwide, May existing home sales fell 2.8%, which again has been impacted by high mortgage rates and also the supply and demand. This was the second straight monthly decline. Building permits unexpectedly fell 5.5% in May, and that pulled the annual pace down to 1.44 million units. And this was the lowest since December of 2022. And again, there's speculation that this is also being impacted by rate environment and just kind of general economic conditions. In May, the average 30-year mortgage rate, it is below 7%, 6.95%, and that's down from a high of 7.29%, which we reached in April of this year.
7.29 was the highest,
Yeah, so far in this since the beginning of the year.
30-year.
Yeah,
Okay.
just over the last, and actually that's going back through the end of the year. At a regional level, I typically provide some data on kind of what's happening in markets within Deschutes County. The Bend single family residential market had a median sales price of $753,000 in May, and that was up from $707 in April. Median sales price again is continuing to be impacted by a higher number of sales in that $1 million home range. And it's interesting, of 128 total sales in May, 32 of these sales were above $1 million, and 48 of those were cash sales. So again, we're seeing those trends kind of continue, where the sales that are happening, a lot of those are not being impacted by high mortgage rates. So there's currently a 3-month supply of homes currently listed, and that's actually up. So the last few months, it's been kind of trending at about a 2-month supply.
Talking about Ben still?
Yeah, still talking about Bend.
3 months
Yeah.
supply?
And the properties that are selling are still 10-day listing for a lot of the sold properties. So the ones that are selling quickly, and the others are out there on the market for a little while. Bend area single family residential home permits increased to 42 in May, and that was up from the previous month's total of 21. So that kind of counteracts national trends. And we saw a little bit of a spike in building permits. Redmond statistics for the year showed a similar trend with current median sales price of $540,000 in May. And that's been going up pretty much since the start of the year for Redmond. Redmond area permits were 32 for the month, which is consistent with the prior month's total of 31. So really flat there month to month. And again, Redmond is probably our affordable housing market, continues to be such because of the close proximity to Bend. Looking in other markets within Deschutes County, and again, small sample size because they don't have the volume that Bend and Redmond do, but Sisters area, the median sales price was $700,000. Sun River was roughly $900,000, and Lapine was $480,000. So, any question on any of the economic data?
No, but I did find a 1-bedroom today for rent for $1,500. Yes.
There you go.
It's,
Ring the bell.
Yeah, I'm calling all the people that are advertising. So that's me,
Yeah.
seem like it's coming down.
There you go.
Yeah. And we'll have
Less
the
utilities.
quarterly vacancy factor information on apartments. I should have that information kind of mid-July for Deschutes County. So I'll certainly share that information in my July presentation. More discussion to occur there. May treasurer's report, I'll provide just some brief highlights on kind of where we are. The portfolio balance was $321.6 million at month end, which was a decrease of $4.6 million from April. Overall, year over year, the portfolio has increased almost $32 million year over year, but this is primarily due to the courthouse related funding that we've talked about before, both the bonding and Department of Justice support. So we're kind of seeing those funds, and those are being deployed on a monthly basis. So we've match funded with the expected disbursements on the courthouse project, and so we'll see our portfolio balance decline as we pay out on the pay application for the construction project. Net investment earnings were a little over 900,000 for the month, down slightly from last month's earnings, but 375,000 higher than a year ago. And again, this is reflective of higher rate environment, more efficient funds management, and also year-over-year growth in the portfolio. All portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. The LGIP rate continues to remain at 5.2% and hasn't moved for a number of months. The portfolio has a weighted term to maturity of 0.92 years, and part of this is being impacted by the match funding for the courthouse project, which is typically shorter duration. And we're also continuing to target maintaining roughly 40 million plus or minus in short-term liquidity, which is yielding the LGIP rate of 5.2%.
It's like our interest income almost doubled from prior year.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so we have certainly benefited by the rate environment, but our costs have gone up as well.
Yes,
Yes.
of course they have.
So, any questions?
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you decided not to stay retired for long.
I have my days.
Yes, you had your months. Didn't you have 8 months?
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Robert?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer, here for the May 2024 financial report. And I do want to thank Dan Emerson for filling in for me last month. I was on vacation. He presented the April, did a great job. So thank you, Dan, for that. And I guess that was his last time he'll be presenting the financial reports here.
Gave him the confidence to go try to do it all by himself.
That's right. That's right. And he can do it, of course. All right, so this is page 84 in your packet where we'll be starting today. And again, just a reminder, this is unaudited numbers as of May. And we'll be just ending June here real shortly as well. And we'll bring the initial June numbers to you next month as well. So first, we'll cover the general fund, just a high level overview of the general fund. Revenue year to date is 44.5 million, or 100% of budget, with still 1 month to go. But again, most of that in the general fund, as we know, is property taxes, which we receive by November. By comparison, last year, revenue year to date was 42 million, or 96% of budget. So we've collected more as a percent wise this point. Expenses year to date are 40.6 million, or about 88% of budget. And last year at this time, they were 39.9 million, and also at that 88% of budget. So we're right on target with our expenses, even though the number, of course, is slightly different as well. Beginning fund balance is 14 million, or 101% of the budgeted, where we had budgeted 13.8, but still beginning fund balance differences there of only $200,000 out of 14 million is really a good close number as well. Just as you look at the dashboard, the pictures on the bottom, just wanted to point out the monthly revenues, which is kind of the bottom graph there. You can see most of the revenues shows between the 2 years. It's rarely shows up on the graph again. That's just showing again. It's because of our property taxes that we receive in November there. And we'll talk about the general fund in a little more detail on the next few pages. Page 85 in your packet is the FTE position control report. The total in the very right column, July through June percent unfilled, is 10.48%. Last fiscal year at this time, it was 10.46%. So we're now holding steady, and you can see across the rows, we've been in the 10% across all departments, all funds this fiscal year. Last year at this time, we started, I should say, last fiscal year at 12.68%. And you may recall last year, we were in the 12% for quite a while. And then at the end of last year, it dived back down, and on average, it went back down. So we've been staying now in the 10% range. Of the vacancies that we have, there's just a few funds that still remain with a number of FTEs unfilled. Sheriff's Office at 42. Health Services at 37 FTE, and CDD.
They really jumped up a lot though. In 2 months, they jumped up 14 from which they were down to 24 people they were short.
On which
The Health Services.
Oh, Health Services, yes.
Yeah, they've somehow.
Right. I showed 37 now, and then CDD at 11. And we know some of those positions will be reduced in the fiscal year 25 budget, but as of fiscal year 24, they're still showing the 7 there. Any other questions on that?
No.
Okay, page 86 in your packet is the budget to actuals, total personnel and overtime report. And the first set of columns is total personnel costs. And again, the red X's in the 2 rows under projected personnel costs, it's really for the projection over or under budget. Health Services and Risk Management show that they're over as of this point in time. But as you know, you just approved the supplemental budget for this fiscal year, which for those who, if it needed to be within the budget, it is, but we do the budget adjustments that don't require the resolution in June as well. So next month, when you see this report for June, they won't be over projected personnel costs because we just trued up the budget for this fiscal year this month. And so you can see on the overtime column here, our actual overtime through May is 3.21. Our budget is 2.8. So we are over from what we budgeted just in the overtime of 358,000. But that's just one piece of our total personnel costs. Our total personnel cost budget is 179 million. So the difference in the overtime there of 358,000, it's just 0.20% of the total personnel cost. And our total overtime is only 1.8% of total personnel costs. So again, overtime is still just a very small portion of our total personnel cost budget. I'm going to go to page 90 in the packet, which is the ending fund balance. This is just a high level overview. As you're very familiar, we see this every month of where we think of all the funds will end up with their ending fund balance. Do just want to point out a couple funds on here that have a lower fund balance than what we're projecting. One of them you'll see is Fund 295 CDD at 51%, and their target is that $1 million where they're projecting to be at the end of the year. And that's what they've been stating through their reductions and their challenges of where they hope to end up. And that's still where the projection is. And then the third from the bottom, which we'll talk about more, and you just had a discussion as well, Health Benefits Fund 675, the ending fund balance now at about $2.5 million there is where we're anticipating. Again, as Mr. Emerson, Budget and Financial Planning Manager, mentioned, he's hoping it could still be a little higher than that, but to make sure we have enough budget authority, that's where we think it is. And I'll have a few more comments when we get to that Health Benefits Fund as well. Now, page 91 is the general fund. You will see the projections. If we look at our total resources summary at the top portion of the page, we are anticipating to be 991,000 over budget in revenues, which is a good item. And most of that is attributed to the increase in property taxes because of the assessed value was a little bit higher than we budgeted. And then the total requirements, we are under budget by about 607,000. And then with our savings and transfers out of 900,000, we are projecting to be $2.6 million better than our budget for this current fiscal year. But as you know, and our projection for ending the fiscal year with fund balance is $4.8 million. We did budget $14.8 million projection for the general fund. We did budget about $14.6 million in our budget for fiscal year 25. So again, it's really close, $224,000 difference. We have one more month to go, so we'll see what the actual number is, but we are projecting to be really close with our projection on the general fund. So good job to the budget team.
Yeah, good job. It is amazing when you're, yes.
Yeah,
it's
such a
much-
large fund and you're coming in very close on that. I will move to page 193, TRT, funds 160, 170. And again, if you have any questions on any fund, be sure
Which
to.
page did you say?
93 in the packet.
Thank you.
So TRT funds here, again, it's similar story that revenues are down. It's about, as we're nearing 3% of revenues being down. It is interesting to note that from July through May, only April had a positive increase in TRT from fiscal year to date to fiscal year to date over the prior fiscal year. All other months this fiscal year thus far, now we haven't seen June's number yet, but have decreased over last year. May was down 2.1%. So again, year to date, we're nearing 3%. The lowest decrease of the months were November at negative 10.1% and February at 12.8%. Again, those are really months October and January because our reporting is a month delayed when we collect the cash from when the actual result, stays are occur. So we do see the ending fund balance there. The total fund balance line on the projection is at $2 million. And again, as we know, that will be the final payment for Sun River Service District. And just FYI, we are in the process. I sent staff the information, so we'll make that last payment to them just coming up. We're almost in July, so we'll be processing that payment to them real soon as well. So they'll be getting that last payment for them. I'm going to move to page 96 in your packet, Fund 255, Sheriff's Office Fund, combined 701, 702. Looking at their projection column, the total ending fund balance right now, they're projecting in this fund $12.4 million. And it's interesting to note in their fiscal year 25 budget, they did budget their beginning balance, beginning working capital, their beginning fund balance at $12,379,000. So only a $29,000 difference. So if they can hit their projection this year, then they won't have a big of an adjustment like they did in the current year when we're truing up ending working capital. Mm-hmm. So again, we're hopeful there. Now, again, this is for this year's budget. As we look at next year's budget, they have to make sure they meet their target reductions that they talked about in their budget with their expenditures, because there is still a necessity to very much watch that fund as well. Next
Well,
one.
the good news
Yes.
is the ranch is looking better. And, and thank you again to the community that donated, what was it, like $10,000 with the shipping and the hay. So thank you to our very generous community.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Next page, 97, health services, their roll-up fund 274, which includes the rest of their other funds. Here, their projection, I'll just look at total fund balance at the end of the year at 11.1 million is what they're projecting, which is about 3.6 million over what they had budgeted. About 900,000 of that, I just want to go up a few transfers in OHP mental health line. You can see that there's a difference from their budget of about $1.3 million less transfer in from resources. So they didn't have to transfer as much from their reserve fund into this fund to help cover cost. And their fund 270 OHP reserves has about, they're projecting 16.9 million in that reserve by the end of the fiscal year there. And the transfers in from the general fund, that's lower by 856,000 transfers in less from the general fund. That's because the general fund in the last couple of years has provided money in advance to the health services for general fund provided services, but if they had enough funding, didn't need it, then we take it back or we don't transfer as much to them. And that was a change in fiscal year 25. One reason why their general fund increase wasn't as high from year to year, because we're not budgeting the same way where we give them money in advance and then they pay us back at the end. So this is truing up really what we do. And that helps the general fund as well. Going to go to page 102 in your packet, which is Community Development Fund 295. And I believe you also get reports from CDD about the activity, and they mentioned that as well. The total fund balance line, the projection there, that's again that $1 million fiscal year 25 budget that they target of where they're ending up. And that's what they budgeted. Sorry, that's what they budgeted for fiscal year 25. And that's what their projection shows ending. We know it won't be exactly $1 million. It could be if they transfer with the reserves, but that's their target that they try to get to. Through May, CDD has relied on funding services to balance their budget. From CDD general divisions, they've required about 496,000 of reserves, 322,000 from fund balance, and 174,000 from reserves to cover the general divisions. In their electrical, they've required about $53,000 to help true up their costs there. But May was strong and resulted in a reversal of a general reserve and electrical reserve transfer. So they had transferred more, but they were able to transfer less because their May revenue came in a little bit higher than what they were thinking, which is good. So year-end projections have been increased. And that was due to several commercial permits that were anticipated to be issued this month in June. So they weren't expecting those at first. So then the latest updates that CDD had, they were able to adjust their figures a little bit, assuming those permits did come through in June. And we'll hear that not too quickly from now, as we're almost at the end of June. Let's see, I'm just going to go by a few more pages, but if you have any questions on these, we've talked about some of these each month as we've gone through here. I'll go to page 114 in the packet, which is Fund 670, the Risk Management Fund. And this month we do have the risk manager sitting at the table with us. So if we have any specific tough questions, we can ask them as well. However, the point I just want to point out here, the total fund balance, the projection at the end of the year is $8.1 million. And that's also similar to what the fiscal year 25 beginning working capital number is at $8 million. So it is more than the budgeted amount that we are anticipating by $1.6 million. So if the revenues or the claims hold true, then we will still be doing better than what we had budgeted in this fiscal year. Next page, 115 in your packet, health Benefits Fund.
Yes.
The house that was burned down, the little house, did that funding come through? Or were we not going to get some funding for that?
No, we received it. Yeah, that fell under our property insurance
Okay,
policy. So we pay a self-insured retention of $25,000, and then the balance of it was received, and we reimbursed both the facilities department for the work that was done for remediation, and also the property fund that purchased the property.
how much went to the property fund then?
I don't know. I could look that up and
Okay, yeah, I just was curious.
There was a transfer out
I
claims.
mean,
of
it's,
$399.
the house is gone now. If you walk by it, there's nothing there. You know, that cute little house has been taken away.
Yeah, on that page, there's that transfers outline of claims reimbursement, 399,000. So I think combined is that the amounts that went out to other funds, because this risk management fund received all the reimbursements.
yes. But between those,
Right.
between the facilities and property, I have that someplace. I'll find it.
Okay, so that's the 399 then? Okay,
Yeah.
Between the two.
between, yeah,
Yes.
split it up somehow.
Yeah, for reimbursement of their costs as well.
Okay,
And
thank
the
you.
remainder. So 115 in your packet, Health Benefits Fund 675. Again, we went over some of that, those comments earlier. I do just want to add a few comments so that you know about some of the next steps. Admin and budget staff will be meeting starting in July. The first part of July, we have a meeting already set up when Kathleen and Nick are back in the office to talk about next steps and what we're going to do on this. And we actually do have a EBAC meeting tomorrow. We'll all be presenting information to them. Now, it's not going to be the meeting where we solve all the problems. It will take time to work with EBAC about discussions on benefit levels or adjustments and coming to consensus. So we'll be working through that process with EBAC as well. And just
Commissioners, I have an answer to that question. Of the approximately 400,000, 350,000 was to property and 50,000 to facilities.
Thank you.
As mentioned earlier, in the current fiscal year, we did budget originally an 11% increase, but then we actually ended up charging 29.35% out to departments. So we did make that change last year, and we thought it was going to be enough. Again, similar things happened this year. When we developed the budget, we thought a 15% increase in the fiscal year 25 budget was going to be enough. But after looking at more of the data, because they're data informed decisions. And at the time, that's what the data was suggesting, right? And now, but we're also, and hearing from consultants, and we're realizing our consultants the last couple of years have underrepresented the amount of increases that these final claim costs may have as well, in addition to the higher inflation, which we knew, and the big claims that we have coming through with the addition of the pharmaceutical costs. So all of those still coming into play caused that, I'd say, a worst case scenario that we experienced last year, this year as well. So we will be having to have those discussions about what should we be charging departments this year and when and the timing. So we'll be having those discussions.
So when you say pharmaceutical costs, are we talking Ozempic?
I think that is one of them. I think we'd have to ask Trygve or Kathleen some of the more details, but that is one of them that I know that they've talked about where the costs are. It is an expensive drug.
Yes.
So the bottom line, again, as we mentioned, is the total fund balance. Now the projection is about $2.5 million. So it is less than we are anticipating this year by far due to that. And so we know that this fund does need something to happen in order to make it structurally balanced in it. And so that's why we will be having those tough conversations about next steps.
Yeah, because the projection of December 31st, 2022, the projection fund balance was 8.4 million.
Right.
In December of 22. That wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, and at the time, based on the trends and the claims costs that were coming in, that was a legitimate projection. But obviously now with the new claims costs and how they are, it's updated. Again, we are hoping, Dan had mentioned, he's hoping that number will be a little bit higher if these final costs, because again, through July, August, and September, for bills that we receive for any of those claims that occurred before June 30th or on June 30th or before, we still charge those costs back. So it'll take a few months before we finally see final claims, but we know the biggest chunk will come in July for June costs there. And that's the last one I have to highlight.
Great.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, other items?
Couple updates, airport committee meeting last Thursday for Redmond. So the Redmond Airport passing their budgets, the city inside the city of Redmond's budget. But arrivals and departures and enplanements are up. They think that it's just going to keep kind of rising slowly there. Big construction project. They've pre-ordered some of the long lead item stuff that we hear about for our courthouse, but this is happening at the Redmond Airport. Some value engineering on some of the costs, but they're really working on the upstairs with like a half a dozen, airport ramps out to the airplanes. So it's going to be a big project that's coming around up there. No.
Wait, Kim, tell the other,
Oh, we
we'll do
just,
the commissioners first and then we'll do staff.
just a second. Yeah.
I
anything
probably
else?
did something else last week too. Oh yeah, Gambler 500. So the Gambler 500 is the the road rally that comes through the forests, and they were at our fairgrounds. But I was able to do a joint tour or stop by with Republic Services. So Courtney Voss was up there with me. This was last Friday midday. So welcome them to the community. I was driving back up from the south on 97, and the cars were leaving yesterday afternoon, but thank them for their work. So basically a byproduct of that big effort in our community, the Gambler 500, which is a big party out there at the fairgrounds, but they pick up trash in the public lands. The Sons of Smoky app is where people pinpoint where trash and waste is in the federal and the public lands. And there was just a whole row of dumpsters out there, the big ones. And I don't know the status, but I bet they filled them up once or twice. So thanks for the Gambler 500 to come into town. And hopefully it was a exciting but uneventful weekend.
No, there was
Because I haven't
right
heard
by it.
anything. Yeah.
No, there was a 4.5 acre fire right by it.
Yeah. So as I said, if there was some bad thing that happened, I haven't heard about it, but yeah, we'll see.
Well, it wasn't their fire. I think somebody else's fire.
Good.
Sure, Chang, do you have anything?
I'll just report that I was invited to participate in a press conference. I participated virtually into Portland with the regional forester for the Forest Service and the EPA regional administrator for the Pacific Northwest to talk about the West Bend prescribed burn pilot project that happened this spring. The upshot of it was that 1,846 acres were prescribed burned, and on an average year for the last 10 or 15 years, they hadn't been able to get more than 230 acres per year. So it's almost a 10-fold increase. Because we were able to get a little bit of flexibility from EPA, DEQ, and the Oregon Health Authority on putting a little bit of prescribed fire smoke into Bend, and as a result, our community is a whole lot safer with those areas having had prescribed burn fuels reduction implemented on them. Hopefully, my hope is that we'll continue to see that in future years, that scale of burning for a few years, so that we can catch up in that West Bend project area. And the one other thing I would say about it is that it was really important that we had the community response plan developed by County Natural Resources and County Public Health in past years to explain to these air quality regulators how, if there was going to be smoke, we were going to make sure that people knew about it, and we were going to make sure they knew how to protect their health during those prescribed fire smoke events. So we're basically the first community in the nation that has significant air quality constraints like this, where the Forest Service was allowed to do substantially scaled up prescribed burning, and they're going to move to somewhere in central Washington next year for another pilot, but we were the first.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's see. We did have a behavioral health meeting on Friday, and that meeting now is going to be for an hour and a half. It was voted on by the committee, so it was it was lightly attended, but it seemed to be they're actually bringing a student onto the group. So they're working out the formula for that happening. Then we had on Thursday morning, the Coordinated Houseless Response Office, state and federal town hall in at Bend Parks and Rec, and incredibly well attended. And after that, I did do I had someone do a calculation. There are actually 546 homes and or properties around China Hat that have all been affected by the homeless there. And it will be, we've got our work cut out for us there, because the area is spreading. It's getting closer to Sundance now on the 911 maps. And then let's see. Oh, and then the Sister EdCode meeting was also that day. They're going through, they've got an event there. I believe it's July 28th, a Thursday night, the pub talks, and it's going to be in Sisters. So if you're in Sisters, you want to come to that, because it'll be a lot of fun. And then after that, I had the Connect Oregon meeting for our region, and I actually got appointed to represent us at the state. And our first item is the airport expansion, the Redmond Airport expansion, where we're asking for 10 million. And then the second project is Lake County's railroad customer connections. And to finish that, they need 2.2 million. And then the third project was Christmas Valley, which the airport there is like a gravel runway. And that project, in order to finish it, only needs 774,000. So they're really hoping that we can get that. It totals $12,999,000. And because Astoria received a project of 13.9 million last time, I'm hoping that Central, our region, can get adequate funding for those were our top three projects. So that's going to be in May. I think that's all. And
can I ask the 500, that calculation of 546 homes in the China Hat Road area? How did what was that, buffering out a mile, or like how did you flip that geography?
I looked at it, Tecampe. I was called 3 years ago. Somebody that lives at Tecampe, they've got gunshots. They can no longer ride out on the public lands. It's no longer safe. They can never go out there. So there's Tecampe on one side. There's Horse Butte, where they've got 911 calls. Sundance is on the backside of 911 calls. And then you've got Woodside Ranch, and and then there's a couple other home developments in that area. So all those add up to 546. It's pretty significant if you think that perhaps up to 3 people at each residence. So that's approximately 1,500 people that are being impacted on a daily basis by the dangers of fire, people breaking into their house, the destruction, the drugs. It's a long story if you've lived there, as Sandy Baxter testified, who's lived there for, I think, 10, 15 years. Yeah, it's only gotten incredibly worse. Kim?
For the record, I'm Kim Catcher. I'm Public Information Officer for Deschutes County. My apologies for stepping in there a little early.
Quite all right.
I've sent this letter to you via email, the draft, and now I'm presenting it to you in hard copy. And I just wanted to get your feedback and find out if you wanted to send it out as a board or individually.
Thank you so much for doing that. Friday afternoon in Sisters, of course, the fire trucks were like going like crazy and they were going west. So I thought, wow. And then apparently a house burned down in Tollgate. Yeah, this weekend. So, and a fireman was injured. So lots of, I'm sure Roger's delighted that he's retiring.
Sounds like he's leaving the district in good hands with the new chief hire.
I'm happy to sign it.
I'm supportive of this letter also.
Me too.
So do you have a copy for us to sign?
Yeah, I'll get you one.
Okay, thank you.
Capital B and debone.
Oh, yes. Okay, she'll get another letter when we.
Yep,
get upstairs.
almost.
And the date has.
Oh, yeah, and the date final. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
We need to do a new one anyway.
Right.
Thanks.
I gotcha. Thank you.
Should we vote on a letter? We didn't.
That's
Yeah.
not necessary.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure.
Okay. All right. So now we have executive session, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so
I'll do the announcement if.
you will do the announcement before we turn it off, right?
Yes.
Yes, Kim.
Okay. The Deschutes County Board of Commissioners will now convene an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. The specific authorization for this executive session is ORS 192.660. Section 2E, real property negotiations, and H, anticipated litigation, which allows the board to meet in executive session. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain during the executive session. However, the media may only report that the board met in executive session and the identified basis for meeting in executive session. Recording devices are not permitted. No final decisions will be made in executive session, and at the conclusion of the executive session, we will open the doors and invite the audience back to the meeting.
Thank you. So we're now in executive session. Can we take like a 2-minute? Yes. Coming out of executive session, we have instructed John Larity to proceed as discussed. I believe it was a unanimous decision. We will now adjourn, and we do have a meeting Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. So please join us in it. That is the 26th of June. Thank you. See you Wednesday.